Federal judge is set to consider blocking President Trump's mass firings of government employees. 20 Democratic attorneys general are suing, saying the Trump administration violated federal law by failing to give 60 days notice. But Justice Department attorneys say the states lack standing to sue. Senior reporter Katherine Faulders and ABC News legal contributor Kim Wehle join me for more on that. So, Katherine, what's the judge considering here?
Well, the judge is considering essentially an immediate block to the firings of more than 20,000 probationary employees and then the potential future firings of any other federal government employees. Now, it's worth noting that previously there have been multiple challenges, multiple lawsuits on this. Previously, 2 judges have declined to immediately reinstate these workers or block future firings. But still, this is the suit brought by more than 20 Democratic attorneys general. This judge will consider it again. It's worth pointing out, too, that even if there isn't any immediate action taken, as I just mentioned, 2 other judges in different jurisdictions have also considered this. That doesn't mean that this won't play its way out through the courts. It will. There will be multiple other hearings. It won't be the final word here, but still could be a big deal, depending what the judge says, on the future firings of any federal employees and, of course, those 20,000 probationary employees in the federal government who were fired.
Now, Kim, these employees have already been fired. So what happens if the judge rules against the Trump administration? Would this just block future firings, or would they have to be rehired?
It really depends on the law. So one of the other cases, for example, that Katherine was mentioning was brought by unions, and unions have to go through an administrative procedural process. Here, they're saying the probationary employees get 60 days notice, and that the reason has to be justified, that they are not competent, for example, and they're claiming, listen, they're competent, they did a good job, they were just fired en masse. My guess is if the plaintiffs win some temporary relief, what would happen is maybe a 60-day period and maybe then further justification. It's not necessarily that they're going to get their jobs back, but I think it's really important in a big scheme of things for the Trump administration to realize or be told that there are laws that apply. That's kind of the bigger thing, I think, even perhaps more important for the Constitution than whether these individuals, as serious it is, get their jobs back immediately.
Katherine, another judge is also considering whether to block the Pentagon's policy separating transgender service members from the military. What are you watching for on that front?
Yeah, this has the potential to be a fascinating hearing here because this will be really the first legal test on this in particular. The plaintiffs have argued that this policy, the DoD policy, which was finalized in late February, it bans most transgender soldiers from serving with some exceptions. They've essentially argued that this violates the Fifth Amendment rights to equal protection and causes irreparable harm by denigrating transgender soldiers. So this judge will hear this later this morning. Again, this is the first legal challenge on this, so has the ability to be a pretty interesting hearing, and the judge, of course, is considering whether to block this from going into effect immediately.
Kim, the judge ordered the government to clarify things like how many transgender service members are active in the military, how much it spends on therapy, surgical care, other mental health constraints that the Pentagon has previously found to be inconsistent with military standards. So what do you make of that whole request, and what are you watching for in the Pentagon's response?
Well, part of the Pentagon's argument here is that this is not discrimination on the basis of gender, that this is necessary for military readiness, that there's something about the psychological profile of transgender people that makes them unable to serve. So she wants to challenge that. She wants them to produce some evidence or information justifying that rationale. And I should add, Diane, really interesting, there's a huge Supreme Court case pending right now called Skermetti involving a ban on transgender care by the state of Tennessee. So these 2 issues are coming together at the same time. It'll be interesting if the Supreme Court rules in a way that has an impact on the military. I think the military's argument here is, even if it's discrimination, it's the military. We need extra special deference because, we're keeping the United States safe. I don't think it's going to fly with this particular judge, given her comments so far from the bench.
All right, Katherine Faulders, Kim Wehle, thank you both.